Can some of these state lockdown measures go too far? Well, in a dozen states and cities across the country with these protests, they say, yeah, they have, and they want to get back to doing what they want to do. But no less than the Attorney General of the United States says that some states do indeed go too far, and he can picture taking legal action against them if they don't change their ways, whatever that means. Andy McCarthy is the former assistant U.S. attorney. Again, interpreting what he said is risky for me. I'm no lawyer, and you're a great one. Is he saying that if governors add on or do things that go beyond what they originally intended, is he focusing on those or what?
Neil, what he's saying is that when the government regulates your fundamental rights, which include your right of free association, free exercise of religion, your right to work in many ways, they have to narrowly tailor their restrictions so that it's the least restrictive way of burdening your fundamental right. And the Justice Department has already intervened in a case in Greenville, Mississippi, on behalf of religious believers who were being denied the right to do communal observance of Easter. So it's not like this is a threat in the air. This is something they've already done. And I think the most important thing he said, Neil, especially for what you've been covering today, is it's not your burden as an American to show that your job is essential. It's their burden, that is the government's burden, to show that your job can't be operated safely before they can shut it down. And as we move to this phase one, I think that's going to be very important.
But a lot of these governors that were led no less by the President of the United States who recommended these, stay-at-home provisions, not as, robustly as some of the governors, I grant you, argue it is our job to kind of keep you safe and not put you in harm's way or risk your life or others. So when these protesters gather in tight crowds and the rest, are they actually doing a disservice to their very protest? And what is a governor's responsibility there?
Yeah, well, the thing is, Neil, they have multiple responsibilities. One interest that the state has is public health. The other interest the state has, or another interest, the main reason the state was created was to protect the liberties and the fundamental freedoms of Americans. And those things clash. I think what the Attorney General is saying is, at the first phase of a crisis, it makes every bit of good sense to ratchet up the restrictions till we can get our arms around what we're dealing with. But you continually have an obligation to tailor the restrictions down as you move from phase to phase. And what he's saying is we're now moving from the bend the curve phase to the reopening the economy phase. You're still going to have this clash of rights, but the government has to tailor their restrictions down.
But they're also risking potential lives or spiking cases. And I know this is something that, the framers of the Constitution could never have envisioned. I get that. But where do you balance that off between life and livelihood?
Yeah, well, what he said, and I think this is right, Neil, is that it's the nature of executive power that they have a lot of power in order to restrict where it's necessary to restrict on behalf of public health. But it's also flexible federal power, and it's flexible executive power between the states and the federal government. And the idea is that there's no magic formula because the situation's dynamic, and a good executive has to continually react to the changing conditions and the changing goals. Mm-hmm. If they have tamped down here, if they have bent the curve, and we're going to try to reopen the economy, they have to regulate with that in the front of their minds.
With that and that improvement on that curve and clear proof of that. Now, the discrepancy seems to be, thank you, Andy, very, very much, is how long that curve has to last.